Have you ever felt smart in your own language, but completely silent in English? Have you ever had big dreams in your heart, but no words to express them to the world? Have you ever told yourself, one day I will learn English? But days passed, months passed, years passed, and nothing changed? Have you ever watched opportunities pass in front of you, not because you were incapable, but because you couldn't speak? If you are listening to this right now, maybe you live in a place where opportunities are limited, where resources are scarce, where life is challenging and success feels far away. And maybe, deep inside, you know one painful truth. English could change your life, but you don't know where to start. If this sounds like you, then stay with me, because today's story is not just a story. It is a mirror. It is a lesson, and it could be the turning point of your life. In today's world, English is no longer optional. English is not just a language. English is access. Access to jobs, access to education, access to the global economy, access to the world. You can be intelligent, you can be talented, you can be hardworking. But without English, you remain invisible to the world. That is exactly why Fluent Diary was created. Not to teach you English like school, not to overload you with rules, not to promise miracles in 7 days, but to walk with you step by step, day after day, until you become fluent. And I make you one promise today: I will stay here. I will keep sharing real stories, real methods, real discipline, until you become fluent in English. Together, we improve every single day. Now let me tell you a story of a man who started with nothing. Part 1. The beginning. A boy from the countryside. His name was Ngolo. Ngolo was born in Equatorial Guinea, in a small countryside village far from the noise of big cities, far from airports, universities, and international dreams. There were no tall buildings, no fast internet, no English schools, no doors open to the world, only dusty roads, old houses, and endless fields. His father was a farmer. His mother sold small goods at the local market. They worked hard every single day, not to get rich, but simply to survive. Life was simple, but merciless. Every morning, before the sun touched the sky, Ngolo woke up to the sound of roosters and dry wind. He carried water from the river. He walked long distances barefoot. He helped his father in the fields, under the burning heat. There was no time for dreams, only responsibility. English? That word did not exist in his world. At school, classes were overcrowded. 40, sometimes 50 students in one small room. Teachers were tired. Books were old and torn. Hope was rare. English class lasted 1 single hour per week. No conversation, no listening, no speaking, just copying sentences from the board. Sentences he would never use. If you asked Ngolo at 18 years old, introduce yourself in English, he couldn't. Not even, "Hello, my name is Ngolo." And inside his heart, a dangerous belief was growing. English is for rich people. English is for people born in big cities. English is for those who travel, not for someone like me. But life was not only difficult, it was unfairly challenging. Sometimes, days passed without electricity. Sometimes, weeks passed without money for school fees. Sometimes, Ngolo had to choose: go to class or help his family work so they could eat. More than once, he studied under a streetlight because his house had no power. He wrote his homework on recycled paper. He shared one old dictionary with 5 students. He walked kilometers to attend school. And still, he never complained. He never gave up. While many others quit, while many said, "Life is too hard. There is no point," Ngolo kept waking up every morning, kept working, kept fighting quietly, even when nothing in his environment encouraged him to dream. Because deep inside, there was a small voice whispering, "I was born poor, but I was not born to stay poor." He had no English, no resources, no opportunities, but he had something more powerful: courage, resilience, and a heart that refused to surrender. And one day, that hidden fire inside him would change everything. Part 2, the inner struggle. Dreams versus reality. Like many young Africans, Ngolo had dreams. Dreams bigger than his village. Dreams bigger than his circumstances. Dreams bigger than his reality. He wanted more than survival. He wanted freedom. He wanted opportunity. He wanted to travel, to speak confidently, to stand in the world without feeling small. But for millions of young Africans, dreams often live in the heart, while reality lives on the shoulders. Because Africa is full of contrasts. Young people here grow up with less, but they grow up with strength. They don't always have fast internet, but they have determination. They don't always have mentors, but they have resilience. They don't always have rich parents or modern technology, but they know how to survive hardship, how to fight for every opportunity, how to hope even when life gives them nothing. And that is their greatest power. But there is also a painful side. Many young Africans are intelligent, talented, creative, yet they face obstacles that others never see. No connections, no capital, no guidance, no access to quality education. Sometimes they work during the day and study late at night. Sometimes they support their families instead of investing in their dreams. And often, the biggest enemy is not poverty, it is procrastination. That silent voice that says, "I will learn English later. I am too tired today. I don't have time. I will start next month." Not because they are lazy, but because life feels heavy, responsibilities never stop, and hope sometimes fades. Days became months. Months became years. Ngolo watched others leave the country. Others found opportunities. Others changed their lives. And he stayed where he was. Not because he lacked intelligence. Not because he lacked potential. But because English, the bridge to opportunity, was missing. Every night, when the village became quiet, when the sky turned dark and only the sound of insects filled the air, Ngolo looked at the ceiling and asked himself, "Is this all my life will be? Will I remain here forever? Will my dreams die inside me because I cannot speak one language?" He knew one truth that hurt deeply. He was capable. He was strong. He was ready to work harder than anyone else. But without English, the world could not hear him. And in that silent inner battle between dreams and reality, between desire and fear, between hope and hesitation, something began to awaken inside him. A question, a fire, a decision forming slowly. If others can learn English, why can't I? If they can do it in 1 year, why can't I do it in 4 months? If my life has limits, my effort will not. That was the beginning of his transformation. Not the moment he started learning English, but the moment he stopped making excuses. The moment he said, "Enough. This is my life, and I will fight for it." And from that inner struggle, from that painful honesty, his journey to learning English in only 4 months finally began. Part 3. The Turning Point. Humiliation that changed everything. One day, everything changed. A foreign businessman came to the region, searching for local partners, people who were serious, disciplined, and trustworthy. And of all the workers in the area, Ngolo was chosen, not because he spoke English, not because he had connections, but because he was known for one thing. He worked hard. He never cheated. He never gave up. For his village, this invitation felt like a miracle. For his family, it was a moment of pride. His father shook his hand and said, "Go, my son. Show them who you are." Ngolo wore his cleanest shirt, polished his old shoes, and walked into that meeting with hope in his heart and fear in his stomach. The businessman arrived with his team. They smiled, shook hands, and then the meeting began. In English. Suddenly the room changed. Words filled the air, fast, sharp, unstoppable. To Ngolo, it felt like someone pressed the fast-forward button on life itself. The men were laughing, discussing, negotiating. And Ngolo, he sat there, silent. He tried to understand. He tried to catch at least one sentence, but every word sounded like a storm. Someone turned to him and asked, "Ngolo, could you please introduce yourself?" His heart started racing. His hands were shaking. His mind went completely blank. Inside his head, he was screaming, "I know who I am. I know what to say, but the words will not come out." He opened his mouth and said, Yes, I am Ngolo. I work, farm, very good work." A moment of silence. Not the good kind, the painful kind. The kind where time stops and pride breaks quietly inside your chest. One man tried to smile politely. Another looked confused. Someone gently moved the conversation away from him. Ngolo wanted to disappear. He wanted to run, to hide, to rewind life and try again. At that moment, he didn't feel poor. He didn't feel uneducated. He felt powerless, not because he lacked intelligence, but because he lacked English. They continued the meeting. Deals were discussed. Opportunities were shared. And Ngolo sat there like a soldier, without a weapon, watching the battle from the side. At one point, he even laughed nervously at a joke he didn't understand, only to realize they weren't laughing anymore. That moment was painful, and yes, a little embarrassing, but also unforgettable. After the meeting, he walked home in silence. No music, no talking, no distractions, just a storm inside his chest. That night, he did not sleep. He lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling, hearing again and again the same sentence in his mind. If I had English, my life would be different. He remembered the businessman's confident voice. He remembered the way opportunities moved around him, but never through him. He thought about his father in the fields, his mother at the market, his village, his childhood. And then, a moment happened. A small fire lit inside him. A powerful voice rose in his heart. I refuse to feel like this again. I refuse to watch life pass by. I refuse to stay silent. He sat up, clenched his fists, and said to himself, slowly, clearly, with courage, I will learn English. Not tomorrow, not next year, now. No teacher, no fancy school, no perfect situation, just discipline, commitment, faith in himself. For the first time in his life, his dream was no longer a wish. It was a decision. And that decision was the beginning of the 4-month journey that would transform his life forever. Because sometimes Humiliation is not the end of a chapter. It is the beginning of a revolution. Part 4. The Truth Nobody Tells You. When Ngolo woke up the next morning, the world looked the same. But he was not the same man anymore. The humiliation from that meeting was still burning inside his chest. Not as pain anymore, but as fuel. He looked at himself in the mirror and said, "Enough. Enough excuses. Enough fear. Enough waiting for miracles." Because here's the truth nobody tells you. You cannot become fluent overnight. You cannot wake up one morning and magically speak English. You cannot expect success without sacrifice. People love shortcuts. People love promises like, learn English fast, speak like a native in 1 week. But Ngolo knew something brutally real. Fluency does not come from motivation. Fluency comes from discipline. Motivation is easy. Everyone feels motivated for one day. But discipline? Discipline is showing up when you are tired. Discipline is studying when others are sleeping. Discipline is working while others are complaining. And Ngolo made a decision that sounded crazy to many people. He would learn English in just 4 months. No teacher, no expensive school, no perfect environment, just commitment. He didn't wait for the right moment. He didn't wait for better conditions. He didn't wait for support or approval. Because waiting had already stolen too many years. He told himself, almost like a command, no more later, no more tomorrow, no more when I have time. I start now. While others were saying, I don't have internet, I don't have money, I don't have time. Ngolo said, I don't have excuses. He knew one harsh reality. People want success like magic. But they run away when effort appears. They want to speak English fluently, but they don't want to repeat sentences 100 times. They want opportunities, but they don't want sacrifice. They want a new life, but they don't want to fight for it. Ngolo refused to be one of those people. He chose the hard road, the slow road, the disciplined road, because he understood practice makes perfect, not impatience. Repetition builds fluency, not shortcuts. Consistency changes destiny, not dreams. While others waited for opportunities, Ngolo decided to create his own. While others said, I wish, I hope, maybe one day, Ngolo said, I will. From that moment on, English was no longer a goal. It became his mission, a mission he would follow every day, every hour, 7 days a week, without mercy, without negotiation, without excuses. Because he wasn't just learning a language, he was rewriting his life. And deep inside, he knew, if I stay disciplined for 4 months, my future will never be the same again. That was not motivation. That was warrior mindset. The kind that breaks laziness. The kind that kills procrastination. The kind that forces destiny to open doors. And from that day forward, Ngolo stopped surviving and he started rising. Part 5. The 4 months discipline journey. From that day on, Ngolo's life changed, not because magic happened, not because someone helped him, but because he declared war on excuses. He didn't have a classroom. He didn't have a private teacher. He didn't have perfect conditions, and neither do most people. Some listeners live in busy cities. Some live in quiet villages. Some work long hours. Some take care of children. Some study and work at the same time. Life is not easy anywhere in the world. Africa, Asia, Europe, America, different places, different realities. But one truth is universal. No one ever becomes fluent by waiting. People become fluent by practicing every single day. And that is exactly what Ngolo decided to do. Not when he had time, not when he felt motivated, but every single day, 7 days a week. Month 1, the foundation, survival English. Ngolo did not start with long grammar books. He did not start with difficult vocabulary. He started with life, with real, simple sentences that he could use immediately. Sentences like, I don't understand. Please repeat. I am learning English. Can you speak slowly? He wrote 50 basic sentences for real situations. And every morning, before work, and every night before sleep, he repeated them out loud. Not once, not twice, 10 times. His voice was his classroom. His room was his school. His discipline was his teacher. And while many people say, I don't have time, Ngolo found time. On the bus, during breaks, walking to work, cooking, before bed. He didn't study when life was comfortable. He studied inside real life. Because fluency is not a dream. It is a daily habit. Month 2, training the mind, thinking in English. By the second month, Ngolo understood something powerful. His biggest enemy was not pronunciation. It was not vocabulary. It was translation. So he forced his brain to think in English. Wherever he was, he described life. The sky is cloudy. I am tired, but I will practice. I am walking to work. He talked to himself quietly. He narrated his day. And every night, he wrote a small diary entry. Bad English, broken grammar, simple words, but every day without fail. Across the world, people make the same excuse. I don't speak because my English is not perfect. But Ngolo learned a new rule. You don't become fluent and then speak. You speak and then you become fluent. And slowly, English stopped being a subject. It became a language living inside his mind. Month 3, the voice of confidence, listening and shadowing. Month 3 was about sound, about rhythm, about confidence. Ngolo didn't just listen to English. He trained his ear. Movies, podcasts, audiobooks, conversations, but not passively. He paused. He repeated. He copied the accent, the tone, the emotion, sentence by sentence, word by word. This was not entertainment. It was discipline. Sometimes he felt tired. Sometimes his tongue felt heavy. Sometimes his brain resisted. But he refused to quit. Because real fluency doesn't come from feeling ready. It comes from showing up anyway. And little by little, his English started to sound stronger, clearer, more natural. People began saying, "Your English is improving." That sentence became fuel. Month 4, courage in action, speaking without fear. The final month was not about technique. It was about courage. Because the real test of English does not happen in books. It happens in conversation. So Ngolo decided, I will speak, even when I am afraid. He joined online groups. He talked to strangers. He asked questions. He made mistakes. He laughed at himself. He corrected himself. He tried again. And something powerful happened. He realized people were not laughing at him. They were encouraging him. Because effort is respected everywhere in the world. He stopped being the boy who waited. He became the man who acted. And by the end of 4 months, no translation, no panic, no silence, just communication, confidence, progress, not perfect English, but real English, alive, strong, useful. Now, listen carefully. This message is for you. This story is not fiction. It is not fantasy. It is not luck. It is discipline. And discipline is possible for anyone, for the student in Nairobi, for the worker in Manila, for the driver in Paris, for the mother in Sao Paulo, for the engineer in Mumbai, for the young dreamer anywhere in the world. Different lives. Same rule. Small steps every day are more powerful than big dreams with no action. Ngolo did not have the best tools, but he had something greater: consistency. And consistency is what builds fluency. Not in 10 years, not one day, but starting now. Part 6. Doubt, Mockery, and Determination. Even with discipline, Ngolo's journey was not easy. Because when you try to change your life, the world does not always support you. Some people laughed at him. They said, "So now you think English will change your life? 4 months? That's impossible. You are just wasting your time." Others didn't laugh, but their silence hurt even more. They watched him practice and whispered behind his back, "He is dreaming too big. He should stay where he belongs." Some friends stopped calling. Some relatives didn't understand. And sometimes, very late at night, when the world was quiet and his notebook was still open, doubt entered his mind. He asked himself, "Am I really on the right path? What if they are right? What if I fail?" Again, there were days when his tongue felt heavy, when the sentences came out wrong, when nothing made sense. Days when fatigue arrived before sunrise. Days when his heart whispered, "Maybe you should stop." And in those moments, he felt something every learner feels: the fear of not being enough. But here is the difference. Ngolo did not let doubt decide his future. He remembered the meeting. He remembered the silence. He remembered the feeling of being powerless. And he said to himself, "I would rather suffer now than suffer again in silence." So he kept going. One more sentence, one more repetition, one more day of discipline. Because success is not built in comfort. It is built in resistance. And strangely, the more people doubted him, the stronger his determination became. Every criticism became fuel. Every joke became motivation. Every doubt became a reason to continue. He was not only learning English, he was proving to himself that he could rewrite his destiny. And somewhere, deep inside that struggle, something powerful was beginning to awaken. A change, a shift, a silent evolution, something that the people around him could not see yet, but would soon feel. Because the boy they once laughed at was about to become someone they would never forget. And that moment was the beginning of the transformation. Part 7. The Transformation. 4 months and few days passed. 4 months of discipline. 4 months of repetition. 4 months of sacrifice when others slept, laughed, or gave up. Then one day, something incredible happened. Ngolo was invited again, this time to a business presentation with an international team. Same type of environment, same kind of meeting, but he was no longer the same man. The meeting began in English, and this time, he did not panic. He did not freeze. He listened, he understood, he breathed. And when the moment came, he spoke. Not fast, not perfect, but clear, confident, alive. "Good afternoon. My name is Ngolo. I am responsible for operations in this region. Let me explain our strategy." The room went silent. Not with pity this time, but with respect. The same people who would have ignored him months earlier now leaned forward to listen, because now He was not just a young man from a village. He was a man who had broken his own limits. Opportunities followed English. From that day, doors began to open. First, a collaboration project in Douala, Cameroon. Then, a logistics partnership in Lagos, Nigeria. Later, an invitation to a trade event in Casablanca, Morocco, where Ngolo held his first full conversation with European investors in English. One step led to another. He traveled to Lisbon, Portugal, to negotiate shipping rates for his growing import-export business. Soon after, he visited Istanbul, Turkey, to meet textile suppliers. Months later, he was in Dubai, sitting in a conference hall surrounded by entrepreneurs from India, China, Germany, Brazil. And for the first time in his life, he did not feel small, because now he could speak, he could present, he could connect. And every time he signed a contract, every time he shook a hand, every time he entered a new country, he whispered to himself, English made this possible. From farmer's son to global entrepreneur, Ngolo built partnerships. He reinvested profits. He opened a small trading office in Malabo, then another one in Accra, Ghana. He worked with clients in France, suppliers in China, and distributors in Kenya and Rwanda. He began mentoring young people, sharing his journey, telling them the same truth. I did not change my life by magic. I changed it by learning English and refusing to quit. His story spread across communities because it was real. No millionaire parents, no scholarships abroad, no lucky break. Just discipline, faith, relentless effort, and one powerful tool, the English language, the bridge that connected his village to the world. English was not just a language. It was the key. English opened doors. English turned silence into opportunity. English transformed isolation into connection. Without English, he would have stayed in the same place, the same life, the same quiet frustration. With English, he built a business, he traveled the world, he changed his destiny. And today, Ngolo walks through airports in Paris, Doha, Singapore, Nairobi, not as a tourist, but as a global businessman, a man who started with nothing except courage, a man who proved that poverty is not a prison when discipline becomes your weapon, a man who learned English in just 4 months and used it to rewrite the story of his life, a bridge to the next chapter. And now, as his story reaches this moment of victory, a question remains for the listener. If Ngolo could rise from the fields of his village to the boardrooms of the world, what about you? Because his transformation is not only his story, it is an invitation. And in the next part, we will reveal the final lessons, the principles, the mindset, the truth behind how this transformation became possible, and how you can begin yours. And now, as we come to the end of this journey, let's be honest. You do not lack intelligence. You do not lack talent. You do not lack dreams. What most people lack is discipline, consistency, and the right roadmap. Because fluency in 4 months is not magic. It is mindset, method, and commitment. Fluent Diary exists for one purpose: to walk beside you, step by step, to give you a clear strategy, and to remind you that progress is built daily through patience, repetition, and courage. If Ngolo could rise from a small village with no resources to a life of global opportunity, it is because he chose the right mindset, the right system, and the right discipline. But his story did not end after 4 months. Those 4 months were not the finish line. They were the beginning of a greater journey. Ngolo did not stop once he became fluent. He kept learning. He kept practicing. He kept improving his skills, discovering new lessons, and refining his English every single day. Today, he continues to grow, to challenge himself, and to stay disciplined and humble. He has become a model for the young people of his country, a voice of hope for his friends and family, reminding them to never give up. Because true success is not only about changing your own life, it is about inspiring others to rise with you. And now, the choice belongs to you. Choose the mindset, follow the roadmap, commit to the discipline, start your journey, and never stop learning. This was today's page of Fluent Diary. Tomorrow, we write a new one. And together, with courage, effort, and consistency, we become fluent